A man walks into a crowded bar near a major college campus. There are friends around him. Cameras nearby, people coming and going, lights, noise, witnesses, movement. It should be one of the hardest places in the world to simply vanish. And yet, that is exactly what seems to have happened. He is seen going in. After that, everything becomes a gap. No confirmed exit, no confirmed sighting, no body, no clear crime scene, no explanation that fully makes sense. This is the haunting true story of Brian Shaffer. What makes this case so gripping is not just that Brian disappeared, it is the setting. When people vanish, we expect lonely highways, dark trails, isolated stretches of road, places where there are no eyes, but Brian's case gives us the opposite. A bar district, surveillance cameras, friends nearby, a busy night out. The kind of environment where you feel invisible only in the safe way, surrounded by strangers, not in the terrifying way. And that is what makes the story hold people so tightly. Because if someone can disappear there, then where exactly is safe? Brian Shaffer was 27 years old, a medical student in Columbus, Ohio, and by all accounts, someone with a future that looked very much in motion. He was intelligent, close to the people around him, and moving through the intense but structured world of medical training. He was not someone who appeared to be drifting without direction. His life had shape. That matters because in missing person cases, investigators and the public always circle the same question first. Did this person intend to leave? In Brian's case, the people who knew him best struggled to believe that he would simply walk away and cut himself off from everything. There was also emotional weight in his life at the time. Brian's mother had died only weeks before he vanished. That detail matters not because it explains anything cleanly, but because it adds another layer of complexity to how people interpreted his disappearance. Grief changes people. It can make them quieter, more distracted, more unpredictable from the outside. But grief alone does not explain vanishing into thin air. It just creates a shadow people naturally look at when they are desperate for answers. On the night he disappeared, Brian had been out celebrating the start of spring break. He spent part of the evening with his father, then later met up with friends and went bar hopping near Ohio State University. Eventually, they ended up at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, a bar that would become permanently tied to one of the most baffling missing person cases in modern true crime. Brian was there drinking, talking, moving through what should have been an ordinary late-night social scene. Nothing about that should have become historic. Nothing about that should have become the last confirmed chapter of someone's life. At some point in the early hours of April 1st, 2006, Brian was seen on surveillance footage at the bar. He was observed near the entrance area and was reportedly seen speaking with two women shortly before 2 in the morning. Then he moved out of camera range. And after that, the entire case changes. Because while investigators had footage of Brian entering the bar earlier that night, there was no clear footage showing him leaving in the normal way. That single fact has haunted this case for years. Think about how powerful that is as a mystery. If there is no clear exit on camera, then what are the possibilities? Did he leave through some route that was not being properly watched? Did he somehow slip past without being recognized? Did something happen inside or near the building that was missed in the confusion of a busy night? Or did he choose to disappear in a way so deliberate that the most obvious clues were designed to fail from the start? Every theory collides with the same wall. The setting feels too public for a clean disappearance, but the evidence feels too thin for a clear crime. This is where the Brian Shaffer case becomes almost unbearable for people who follow true crime closely. Usually, even in baffling cases, there is some anchor point that allows the mind to settle. A likely route, a suspicious vehicle, a strong suspect, a digital trail, a final phone ping that narrows the map. Here, the central image is not movement but interruption. A young man in a bar, then a blank space where a normal exit should be. His car was reportedly still parked near his apartment after he vanished. His phone, bank accounts, and credit cards were not used in any meaningful way that suggested a new life had begun somewhere else. That detail hits hard because voluntary disappearances usually leave some ripple: financial, digital, social, logistical. Starting over is not magic. It requires action. But in Brian's case, the expected signs of continuing life did not emerge. Instead, the case froze in place, as if time stopped for him right after that night out. And yet, because there was no definitive evidence of foul play, no body, and no public answer, theories began spreading in every direction. Some believed he met with an accident after leaving the bar through an alternate route. Others believed he was attacked. Others wondered whether grief and pressure had pushed him toward a voluntary disappearance. That is what happens when a case offers just enough facts to invite speculation, but not enough to shut it down. People start trying to build bridges out of uncertainty, and every bridge ends in fog. The alternate exit question has always been one of the most important parts of this mystery. Public discussion of the case has long focused on whether Brian could have left through a service exit or some route not typically used by patrons. That possibility matters because it breaks the illusion that he had to be visible to investigators if he left. If there was another way out, then the mystery shifts. He did not vanish from inside a sealed box. He vanished from a complicated environment where surveillance coverage may have seemed stronger than it really was. But even if he left that way, the bigger question still remains untouched. What happened next? And that is where the case becomes more than a puzzle. Because once you get beyond the famous surveillance angle, you are left with something much sadder. A son recently grieving his mother, a boyfriend with travel plans ahead of him, a medical student at the edge of a demanding future, a family who expected to hear from him again. Instead, they got silence. The public often remembers the mystery first, but families live with the person first. For them, the case is not a riddle. It is an unfinished life. There is another reason. Brian Shaffer's disappearance continues to grip people 2 decades later. It attacks our confidence in observation. We believe cameras make the world easier to explain. We believe crowded places are full of witnesses. We believe that if enough people are nearby, someone will notice the one detail that matters. But Brian's case suggests something darker, that a person can still slip between all those layers, not because no one was looking, but because everyone assumed someone else would see what they missed. Imagine the emotional torture of that for investigators and loved ones. To keep returning to the footage, to keep slowing it down, keep looking at entrances, exits, timelines, movements, angles, to believe the answer might still be sitting there inside some small, overlooked detail. Cases like this do not just leave behind grief. They leave behind repetition. The same questions revisited for years. The same night replayed over and over in different minds with different theories, and the same refusal of certainty each time. Brian was also supposed to be heading into spring break plans just days later. That detail matters because it cuts against the image of someone preparing to disappear forever. People can, of course, abandon plans unexpectedly. That happens. But the presence of ordinary future commitments, especially near-term ones, often makes a voluntary vanishing feel less persuasive to those left behind. It does not prove anything by itself, but it adds weight to the sense that something disrupted his life rather than redirected it. As the years passed, the case did not fade because it could not. It had too many elements that forced the public mind to hold on to it. The bar, the cameras, the missed exit, the total absence of resolution. It became one of those cases people bring up whenever they talk about disappearances that feel impossible. Not because there are no theories, but because every theory seems to explain one part by weakening another. If he left voluntarily, why no trace of continued life? If foul play happened quickly, where is the evidence? If he wandered off in confusion or distress, why has nothing definitive ever been found? Each answer seems to create a new problem. And maybe that is why the story remains so powerful. It is not a case built around one horrifying image. It is built around a missing image. The moment that should exist but does not. The exit that should be visible but is not. The path from ordinary night to total disappearance that the world somehow failed to capture. In true crime, we are used to terrible events leaving scars. Here, the scar is the absence itself. If there is one feeling that defines the Brian Shaffer case, it is dislocation. He seems to step out of normal life and into an empty space history cannot map. One minute he is part of the crowd. The next minute he belongs to mystery. And for everyone who has followed this case, that transition remains almost impossible to accept, because it happened in a place designed to be seen. Brian Shaffer was 27 years old when he disappeared in Columbus, Ohio, in the early hours of April 1st, 2006. He was last known to be out drinking with friends near Ohio State University. He has never been found. The case remains unsolved. And that is what makes it so chilling. Not just that a man went missing, but that he seems to have gone missing at the exact point where the world should have been watching most closely. If you follow true crime stories that stay with you because the simplest question never gets answered, subscribe to Pog or Nah. Because some cases are terrifying not because they are full of evidence, but because they leave behind just enough to prove someone was there and not enough to explain where they went.